All right, looks like I'm recording. Hey guys, I started writing you an announcement for today, but I wanted to do a quick video announcement because this is a pretty meaty topic, one I happen to like talk about, and this would be the warm up for Wednesday night. If anyone wants to talk about Wednesday night, we can dig deeper into this. So what we're talking about today is transactions and what they are and how to control them and where they're good and where they're bad and where they can cause problems. So basically, a transaction is whenever you execute code on your database server. A transaction can be 20 lines long, 1 line long, whatever it is. But whenever you execute a series of code, that is a transaction. By default, you have something called implicit transactions turned on, and that's I'm going to be jumping around the slides here. Where is it? Here it is. Implicit transactions are on. Basically, what that means is that's a SQL Server auto commit equals 0 for MySQL. So basically, what that means is whenever you run a series of code, it becomes one transaction. So if you ran 6 update statements, they're one transaction because there's nothing breaking up between them. And what it means is, so when we talk about MySQL, we have something called a write-ahead log, which means the logging. What happens is when you execute a command on MySQL or SQL Server or anything, it writes the log first before it records the data to the actual database. This just lets it, this makes sure that if it fails halfway through, you don't get corrupt data because like half your data, if you're running 6 updates and only 3 run, your data is corrupt. So you don't want to do that. So what they do is whenever you have a transaction, it's done in one batch. And if something fails in the middle of it, it rolls back everything that just occurred. It does that by default. So if you're doing a 500 updates to your database and the power goes out on the server, when the server comes back up, it goes to the log and compares it to the database and says, okay, according to the database, we're at this, it's called LSN, that we're at this LSN, and the log is at this LSN. If they don't match, they roll it back to where they'll match LSNs now. So the data is not corrupt. That's the most important thing, is not getting your data corrupt. Okay. You can implicitly state transaction. So you can specifically state transactions by using, this is a really bad thing, the start transaction command. Okay. So if you're doing code and you've got like 6 updates, you can do the command start transaction. And then let's say you do each update statement as a transaction. Okay. So each one will run, each will complete, and then it'll move on to the next one. So if you had to roll back, you're not rolling back 6 things, you're only rolling back the one. If there's a failure before. Also, when you're using start transaction, you have this neat little trick you can do. You can do a commit or a rollback statement. So let's say you're doing, you're writing a query and you need to change a bunch of rows and you want to make sure it doesn't error out first, right? So you can do the start transaction and then just do this rollback command. So what will happen is it'll execute everything and then roll it back when it's done. So you'll know if it actually works or not because it will successfully run and then successfully roll back. If it errors, nothing bad will happen because it's going to roll back. Then you got these if-else statements. So here, if everything went fine, you can commit, else just roll back. Okay. Commit means whatever I said, what I put in that transaction statement will now commit. So again, if you guys show up, whoever shows up on Wednesday, we'll talk about this because it's a real meaty topic. Again, the way the query writes the database. So whatever you're doing, whatever queries you're running, do not write directly to the database. They write to the log. Then the log writes to the database. This makes sure that nothing happens to the data on the database until everything is sure that it's going to run. Okay, it's the measure twice, cut once theory. So what exactly is a transaction? A transaction is a set of queries that locks a resource on the database and does not let anything happen until it's done. Okay. Think of like, think there's, you got a single door and everyone's trying to, no, think of it like the deli counter at the supermarket. Everyone takes a number. You kind of wait until then. There's only one person working because there's only ever one person working at the deli counter, right? And you're waiting for that one person to free up. So the person who is talking to the deli counter guy is in a transaction with them, and his resources are locked until that guy is done. So there's 3 basic kinds of lock. There's a table lock, a page lock, and a row lock. A table lock stops people from touching a table until you're done with it. So if I'm updating the customer table and I've got a bunch of customer things I'm updating, no one can use that table at all. You can't look at it, you can't update it, you can't do anything. It locks the table until I'm done what I'm doing. Okay. So what we want to do is they're called dirty reads. We don't want anyone to get dirty reads when they're querying the database. Okay. So if I'm running 500 updates on a table and someone like does a select and the select's allowed to go through, 80, 90 of the updates may have gone. So everything you're going to get is wrong, so we don't want that to happen. So we want to lock that table until it's done. A row lock is incredibly granular. Row lock locks the row that's being updated, not the entire table, just the one row. If you're doing massive updates to Mr. McGillicuddy in the customers table, no one can select. If you do a select all, his record won't show up. Okay. Now a page lock, it says here, keeps multiple users from modifying data on the same page of a table at the same time. Now what that means is, and I'm not sure I showed you guys the video, if not, I'm gonna dust it off. When the data is stored on the disk, it's stored in 8K pages. Okay, so every page is 8K. There might be multiple rows on the same page. Okay, so when they're talking about pages, they're talking about the pages in memory. There's not in the table, there's actually page in memory. So if the information's on a specific page and there's something else on that page that someone wants to get, no one can touch that page until it's done. And this is, so there's that. So now this is where deadlocks come into play. Okay, a deadlock is, so if I have a transaction, let's say I'm running a transaction, right? And I'm using the customer table, and after that, I'm going to use the items table, okay? And then you're running a transaction that you're running the items table. You're updating the items table first, and then going to the customers table, okay? So what happens is we start our transactions, right? And I can't release the customer table until I'm into the item table, and you can't release the item table until you're into the customer table. That causes a deadlock because neither of our locks will be released until we move on, and neither of us can move on until the locks are released. So what happens is the SQL engine chooses a victim and kills one of the processes. It's like a murder show, okay? So it doesn't, it's random. It doesn't know who it is. I'm just gonna kill that one. And then the other one will get to go and one will die. Okay, I'm sure that's covered in here. I went through the slides, but this is a topic that's kind of fun for me. Save points. So what happens in a save point? It's something that's marked in the log. So if we're doing a bunch of things in the log, we want, and before we do, let's say we're doing a bunch of transactions, a bunch of changes, we can mark a save point in the log, right? We can run all our changes. And if something goes wrong, we can roll back to that save point. So it could be like an hour later. We're in dev, we're working something out, we're making changes to the database, we're changing the data, and something goes kablooey, we can roll back to that save point that we named. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. Like this is just a real quick overview. I wanted to give you guys what transactions were. I'm gonna find that other video for you where I talk in depth about pages and extents and all the goods of how the stuff is stored on the database. We'll talk about it on Wednesday, in addition to anything else you guys want to talk about, like with your projects or whatnot. I think that's all. Okay, we will be having Wednesday night, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock Eastern time. And one day this week, probably Wednesday, I'll let you guys know in the announcements that I will be doing a full day of being on Zoom. And I'll try to catch you. I know some people tried to catch me last time, but it was out to lunch. So I'll make sure I'm there this time. Or I'll take off. I'll turn off Zoom while I'm gone. Okay, good. Have a great Monday, and I'll talk to you guys soon.